Broom or Gloom for Jay Johnson's LSU Tigers. At 4 p.m. today, weather permitting, it's LSU versus Ole Miss. Both teams in basically the same situation. They need to sweep or go home. Today on TigerRag.com's Audibles podcast, we're going to break down LSU's chances of making the NCAA Tournament. A lot of people think they only need to win 2 games against the Rebels, but Todd Horne, Jeff Palermo, and Will Nickel think it requires a sweep. We'll get into that, and we'll hear from Coach Jay Johnson and Koki Riley of theadvocate.com when we come back.
May is here, and with it comes adventure from your friends at the East Baton Rouge Parish Library. Enjoy your summer with the 2024 Summer Reading Program. Besides reading fun, check out free programs for all ages at your library. Go to ebrpl.com/summerreading. That's ebrpl.com/summerreading. Your EBR Parish Library is where summer fun begins.
A lot at stake, and playing, important baseball. The last weekend of the season is a good thing. That's the expectation here. It's the expectation of me. But in spite of the difficulty, these games matter. And, just looking forward to best effort at home, like last weekend, playing a team that's in a very similar situation. And so, looking forward to pitching well, defending well, taking good at bats, playing with a ton of energy. I can validate that this is really important to our players, and we didn't win, but I think the effort last weekend reflected that.
Koki, I'm going to go ahead and ask you the question, and I'm sure you've been asked a million times, if not more, when you head to barbecues or what have you with your family and friends, when you have time for that type of shenanigans. But what do you look at as far as what has gone wrong with the formula for this team this year, especially I know you get to spend a lot of time with Jay Johnson. What do you put your finger on, or is there one thing that you put your finger on? And if not, what are the combinations that have happened to screw this up to this point?
Yeah, I think like many things in life, there are many different reasons why things go as the way they go, right? So with this LSU baseball team and the way the season has gone, I think a lot of it has to do with this kind of perfect storm of not getting – there's kind of 3 things, but I think 2 primary ones. Like the one thing that I don't think is necessarily a primary thing, but I think it's been somewhat of a factor is they're just not really getting the breaks this year, whether it's, not getting hits in the right spots at the right times because, the ball just happens to be hit right at the shortstop. Like that happened twice on Sunday where they've got a runner at third and 2 outs in the 8th inning and Steven Milan just hits the ball right to the shortstop. If that run scores, the game is tied. And the inning before that, they had runners on second and third, and they were, only down by they were down by 3, but I could have started a rally there, and Fry just hits the ball right to the shortstop. Right, like those were decent hits, and they could have been, they could have really changed the complexion of their season if those just aren't hit right at the shortstop. Like there's been stuff like that that's kind of happened all season, but I don't think that's the main reason why they're at where they're at, right? Like luck you can't just point to luck.
Yeah, the baseball gods.
One thing.
The baseball gods don't like them, but that's not the main reason.
Exactly, and they got a lot of those good roles last season, so it does make sense to a degree in that sense as well. So, but anyway, like all that to say, like I think offensively, this team has taken a definite step back, probably 2 steps back from where they were last season. I think we expected at least some of it, if not most of it, just because of the amount of guys that you're losing, not just Dylan Cruz, but you're losing Gavin Dugas, you're losing Trey Morgan, you're losing Cade Beloso, and they just haven't been able to replace that production through, the freshmen who turned into sophomores. And I think this year's freshman crop at the plate, Steven Milam and Ashton Larson have been, bright spots for them. But it's hard to expect too much from true freshmen, right? And
right.
They definitely taken a big step back offensively, and it was probably too big of a step. backwards. You hope that, Jay Johnson can make up some of the difference because of his track record as a hitting coach, but that just hasn't really been the case this season in the aggregate. And then I think the biggest reason, though, is the pitching. And I think heading into the season, we figured the pitching would be really top of the league. And one of the best staffs, not just in the SEC, but maybe in the entire country. Maybe not because of like a top tier guy. Like, I don't think anyone expected anyone to be Paul Skeens this year.
Right.
But I think we expected great depth, right? And their bullpen was going to win them a lot of games, and they were going to win a lot of games 5-3 and stuff like that. And I mean, we've seen a turnaround in the last couple of weeks with the pitching staff, but it hasn't been enough. And they dug themselves into such a hole at the start of the year that they've been trying to play catch up ever since. Not just, trying to come back and get into the NCAA tournament picture now through results, but also just with their pitching staff, right? And they found some answers, and some guys have thrown better, and they had the A&M weekend, but it just hasn't been enough, and the season isn't over. And we can talk about, some of the ways that they can use maybe this weekend even to sort of get back into the picture. But at the same time, like, the pitching, the pitching not being elite and just being somewhere between okay and not good is just it's just really, really tough to overcome when you don't have the offense to push them through.
I think that most people that contact the 90-Day Lifeline are looking to be heard and to feel seen.
Anybody that calls here to talk about anything that has them upset, we will talk to them.
Even on our chat and text services, you will be actually chatting and texting with a real person.
We have enough resources to be able to help people in any type of situation.
We have helpline specialists that are trained to handle the variety of calls that we get.
It's a very laid-back thing. We're not judging anybody. We're just a listening ear that some people don't have.
Back on TigerRag.com, Audibles, Jeff Palermo here with you. And LSU needs a sweep, in my opinion, for the Tigers to get to the NCAA tournament. I just have a hard time thinking that could possibly happen, even though when you take a deep dive into Ole Miss and look at their season, it's a little bit almost hard to believe that they have one more win than LSU. They're not a very good team. So it's possible LSU can sweep them, I suppose. But LSU just has not been able to put 3 games together to give me any kind of confidence that they can. It just seems like something always gets in their way.
It does seem like something always gets in their way. They don't have a sweep in the SEC this season. They definitely, I agree with you, they're going to need to sweep in order to have a chance to make the NCAA tournament. Now, if you listen to Jay Johnson thinks they're one of the top 15 teams in the country, even though RPI currently doesn't point in that direction. Strength of schedule doesn't point in that direction. But that's what he says, and I think that has some credibility to it. But I think instead of blowing up or losing by 10 runs in the third game of a series like we've seen happen 3 or 4 times this year, or just not being able to drive in runs when they're in scoring position in close games, SEC games, which has happened 9 times this year at last count in varying fashions. I think the biggest thing LSU has to deal with this weekend is weather. Will they even be able to get 3 games in?
Well, there is, remember, here's an important note, because it is the final weekend. I think it was a couple years ago, the SEC changed the rules that allow teams on the final weekend to extend the series to Sunday. So because of that, and Sunday's weather looks good, I think they're going to be able to get this in.
So, okay, and I don't want to go off on a tangent here, but they've already moved the game up for tonight from 6:30 to 4 o'clock because the weather's supposed to start coming in around 7 or 8 o'clock, according to the forecasters. Tomorrow morning, the rain is supposed to stop, so theoretically they'll be able to get the Saturday game in, and then Sunday's supposed to be good weather. But my question is, will they play a double header on Sunday if they have to?
Yeah, if they have to, they will.
And what does that what happens then to the SEC pitching? Because you don't have, for LSU pitching plan for LSU.
I guess the question is, will it be 2 7-inning games? That I don't know, because the final game, if they in SEC rules on any weekend, and I am presuming this also for this final weekend, when it's the final day of the series, it's 2 7-inning. If it's the final day of the scheduled series, it's 2 7-inning games.
Gotcha.
So that might be what would happen on Sunday if they get to that.
All right.
I think they get a couple games in, but maybe do they extend it to Sunday so they don't play a doubleheader on Saturday? I don't know. I mean, those are we haven't seen this situation present itself.
So that's a good point just for everybody listening. Keep in mind that LSU usually plays, or the SEC usually plays Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Because of the SEC tournament starting on Tuesday, all the series this weekend are Thursday, Friday, and Saturday.
Yeah.
And it just so happens LSU's expecting, or Baton Rouge is expecting torrential rainfalls tonight. Will, does LSU have any path at all to the NCAA tournament, in your opinion, if they don't win 2 games?
If they don't,
3 games. If they don't
win 2 games, they definitely don't. But if I don't think they get in with 12 wins. It's hard to get in with 13 wins. Even I think the number is 38% or something like that. So
exactly.
Even with 12 wins, I mean, that's really hard. I think they would have to win the SEC tournament to do that, and I don't know if I would put my money on them going all the way in the SEC tournament.
Yeah, I don't think I would either. Jeff, there is precedence for an LSU baseball team getting 13 wins in the conference, losing on the first day of the SEC tournament, and still making the NCAA tournament. Could we be looking at a repeat of that possibly this year?
I mean, I think that is possible. I think that could be possible. But I think they, at 13 and 17, you still would love the cushion of at least getting that win on the single elimination day of the tournament on Tuesday. But I think with 13 wins, I think that, to me, is the number that they need to strive for.
So if the SEC tournament were held today, LSU would be the 12th seed, the last seed, and they would be playing 5th-ranked Georgia, which ironically is coached by Wes Johnson, who was LSU's pitching coach last year. But we're all in agreement that LSU, even a victory over Georgia for in the SEC tournament, if that held true, and it's probably not going to hold true, that probably will likely not be their opponent, but not to confuse things. So let's just pretend, make it easy. If LSU wins 2 games against Ole Miss, it does give them the advantage over Ole Miss, who's basically in the same situation that LSU is in right now. But a win against Georgia is really not that helpful, or against anybody in the first round of the SEC is really not that helpful because it's looked at differently.
Yeah, I still think they need, if they go in with 12 wins, you got to make a little bit of a run in the SEC tournament. I think you need to get to the weekend somehow, some way. That means you got to win 3 games then in the SEC tournament. So then maybe that could help boost your resume a little bit. You know, the thing is just that I mean, with 12, there's been no precedent of a 12 and 18 team getting in. So you got to do something special in the SEC tournament, and just because you might, even if they went 2-2, let's say they win the first, let's say they go 12 and 18, they win the first game. They lose on Wednesday. They come back, win Thursday. They lose on Friday, something like that. Whatever. They go 2-2 in the SEC tournament. I still don't think that's enough. I think they really got to get to Saturday.
Okay. So they're in contention with other teams on the bubble in the SEC, which includes Alabama, even though Alabama's in a weird situation because Alabama's technically on the bubble, but they're also still potentially hosting.
Yeah, that's weird.
That is weird. Vanderbilt is another team in the SEC on the bubble. They travel to league-leading Kentucky. And Florida, who has to go to Georgia. And Florida's in a weird situation because you can't make the tournament if you have a losing record, and you're in danger of having a losing record. In other words, if Georgia sweeps them, they're out. If Georgia wins 2, they could be out because they would be, I think, if I'm not mistaken, 500. What does LSU have to do, Will, to win 3 games against Ole Miss?
I think they have to figure out who's pitching on Game 3. They haven't announced that in the last, how many series? Since the Arkansas series, maybe? They just, Game 3, I mean, Luke Holman and Gage Jump they're good enough to beat Ole Miss. I think you can take 2 games with them if they're both on it and the offense can put up some runs. But, I mean, Game 3, you need 3 wins. They haven't gotten 3 wins all season long because they're, 1-8 or 1-9 in Game 3s?
1-8.
1-8, yeah. They need to figure out how to win a Game 3, I think.
So, in your guys' opinion, who is the best bet to be the starter, and what is the pitching plan if they're in a situation where they're up 2-0 going into Game 3?
Well, I guess it all depends on who they've used. I mean, if Nate Ackenhausen has not been used, I think that's who they go with. If not, I don't know. I mean, they've tried. Do you try the Sam Dunton route again? It didn't really work very well last weekend, so I doubt that. Javen Coleman is in the witness protection plan along with Thatcher Hurd. I mean, he's unheard of at this moment. Do they go back to? I'm drawing a blank right now. Who's been their midweek starter?
Cade Anderson.
Cade Anderson. Do they try Cade Anderson again? That hasn't really worked for them once they go into SEC play. I mean, that's the thing. They don't. Ackenhausen, to me, is the guy you got to go with, but you may need him on Friday or Saturday. I mean,
you bring up a good point because how does Jay approach the weekend? Does he approach it saying, okay, we're going to try to win 3? I mean, we got to win 3? Or is he approaching it with a game at a time mentality?
I think, if Nate Ackenhausen pitches on a Saturday like he has, what weekend was that? I don't remember. But he pitched on a Saturday and then he couldn't go Game 3. I think they're really in trouble because what they've been doing, Ackenhausen's been the only one that can go for several innings. When they've been pitching Javen Coleman, Cade Anderson, they've only gone I think Sam Dunton went 1 1/3 inning last weekend. They've been using a lot of the rotation when they go with Game 3, and then you have the games on Tuesday in the SEC tournament, and if you use 6 pitchers on Game 3, then you have no one in your bullpen.
So let's look at it this way. Let's say that LSU goes out tonight or this afternoon at 4:00 when they start, and for whatever reason, Gage Jump is unable to pull in the win. Does Jay Johnson then just change his entire strategy, and now he's trying to figure out a way to win the SEC tournament, and he sort of lets it go?
No, I think he still goes for the series victory. I don't think he changes it that much. I mean, when you listen to Jay Johnson yesterday, I think he really he talked about it during the press conference with reporters on Wednesday about, hey, just don't look at the SEC record. Look at all these other things we've done, the number of non-conference victories, winning the tournament in Houston. He rattled off a couple of other things as well. I mean, he's hoping the NCAA Tournament Selection Committee looks at other things. I think he'll honestly feel, even at 12-18, that his team still has a shot, obviously knowing that they got to really win on Tuesday. So I think if they do lose Thursday, they still go with Holman. I mean, I think it's still the same. It's still the same plan. I don't think it really changes that much. And to be honest with you, it's not like he can do anything. He's got 5 guys that he can really count on, right? I mean, he's got Holman, he's got Jump, he's got Griffin Herring, Christian Little, and Nate Ackenhausen. And if you might be able to put Gavin Guidry in there. 5.5 guys that you can really count on. So with that number, what he doesn't have many options. So so if it does blow up tonight, you just keep going with what you've been doing and start Holman and hope it gets better and hope you win Friday and Saturday.
Do we see Hayden Travinski back in the lineup?
Yes.
Do we see Tommy White leading off?
I hope not.
What are your thoughts?
I think even if we see Hayden Travinski, we're going to see the Hayden Travinski from last season back in the lineup, Or are we going to see the Hayden Travinski from when he was striking out every at bat?
Well, to be honest, I'm Jeff's confident he's going to be back in. He was just taking a break. I think I've heard you say that as well in the last game against Alabama because he had 3 strikeouts in game 2. But I think he struck out an overwhelming amount of times, and I think that he's caused the rest of LSU's lineup, specifically Tommy White, he's not been able to protect them, and I don't know if he sticks with that lineup throughout this weekend.
I've been waiting all year for that. I don't know how long he went on that heater last year when the offense actually kind of was starting to struggle a little bit, and he was the one guy last year that got hot. He hits the big home run against Ole Miss, and then he went on this tear where he hit like 7 or 8 home runs in a 12 or 13 game span. I've been waiting all year for that kind of a run. And we just never got it from Hayden Travinski.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and wrap this up. Let's go ahead and predict what we think is going to happen this weekend and if LSU makes it. Will, you're first.
You know what? I think they take 2. I think Luke Holman and Gage Jump are enough to get the first 2, but their game 3 pitching is really just I can't go with a sweep right now.
Got it. So no NCAA tournament.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd say the same. They win 2 out of 3, but no NCAA tournament.
You guys are awfully confident in them winning 2 games.
I think Ole Miss they have more wins than LSU, so it's difficult to say that they're a bad team, but
statistically,
they're number 13 and I think ERA and batting average in the SEC. So
and last in defensive.
Right. And yeah, they have the most errors, so I think LSU has a good chance, especially at home, to pull out at least 2 wins.
All right. So I think that Gage Jump gets the win tonight, mainly because he can throw to the strike zone and not put people on base, whether hitting them with a pitch or walking them. And I think that's key. Ole Miss relies on the home run to score. I'm not as confident with Holman right now. I have not seen Holman be able to pitch to the strike zone. He's put a lot of people on base. Now he's a tough-minded pitcher, and as Jay says, his heartbeat is good. But I don't have as much confidence in Holman. But if they were able to pull that second game out, I think they're able to win Sunday. I think they will get their first sweep. If they go in there 2-0, they win on Sunday, in my opinion. But I'm not confident they can do that.
No, I'm not either. Even if they win the first 2 games. Because it's just something always happens. Pass ball, wild throw, go 2 for 12 with runners in scoring position or something like that, 2 for 9. There is always some hiccup that Braswell boots a ball, whatever it is, like in the Arkansas. Was it the Arkansas series? Mm-hmm. Yeah, Arkansas extra inning game.
Right.
Something always happens. And we've seen 53 of these games. I have no confidence that it's going to change here after going into games 54, 55, and 56.
All right, so that's it from the TigerRag.com Audibles podcast. But is LSU the 15th best team in the country, even though they probably won't make the tournament?
No, they're not.
Okay. All right. Thanks, guys.
It's your time to move things forward. U.S. Army Reserve.
All right, that'll be it for today's show. I'd like to thank Jeff, Todd, and Will for coming in. We'll be back with you very soon, but until then, stay tuned to TigerRag.com for all your latest LSU sports news.